Hi, it's Jennifer Evans with Empowering Wellness Counseling Solutions, and we've got an action-packed week for you. We are doing grief this week, and I know grief is like, oh, that's so depressing. Well, it's literally a stage of it. But we've got a lot of great things, and we're going to talk about grief beyond loss, and there's some great things that we are looking at when it comes to what grief is and what grief isn't. Grief is us moving on and finding new ways. So we can grieve the loss of jobs, we can grieve relationships. There's so much beyond just the loss of life and death. Where grief, we're looking at it every single day and not even realizing we're in a bereaved state. So this week we've got grief beyond loss and changes and understanding the grief response. We have attachment and how this reflects in loss and change. We have healing our familial wounds. So looking at our past and the capacity our family has. We put a lot of stress on our parents to be perfect, and best thing we can do is really understand that they are only human. And then how to grieve in increments. How do you hold space for yourself? As always, I've got key steps to live a happier and healthier life workbook. Get it on Amazon. It's dropped in the video description, as well as saying goodbye to bad brain, which has a lot of these principles in a more neuroscience-based format. You can also go to my website. I've got lots of blogs. After each one of these videos, there's going to be a free resource that you can access on my blog. I look forward to talking with you and hearing from you. Please hit that subscribe button and like and comment. I am here to support you. Jennifer Evans with Empowering Wellness Counseling Solutions. Hi, it's Jennifer Evans with Empowering Wellness Counseling Solutions, and we are talking about healing family wounds. We are all in this together, and that's the thing about life, is that it's not one person's fault. The brain is geared for survival, and you don't get pissed at, your great grandfather Lenny for giving you hypertension or giving you diabetes. So you can't be mad about what the brain is doing. The brain is just there to survive. It's just another organ to survive. And so when we can understand the capacity that family has and that we're all just humans just trying to survive, it helps us to let go of a lot of shame and guilt. Shame and guilt will hold you in your trauma, it will hold you in your grief. So when you can let all of that go through awareness, acceptance, and action, then you can really open yourself up to so much more in life. And that's where personal growth comes in, is when we can grieve and let go of all of this kind of stuff, all these negative narratives that we hold ourselves back with, and we can move forward. And I said last week that, when we were talking about bad brain, 4 barriers that come from trauma that hold us back from success is fear of success, fear of failure, scarcity mindset, and self-sabotage. And our familial patterns, as we've learned, is a big part of that. We get a lot of implicit messaging from them, and so learning and understanding what implicit messaging is ours and what is somebody else's is a big part of grieving and letting go. Here we go. It all starts with the good enough parent. So object relations theories talks about the good enough mother. And I really like the good enough self. In my first book, Key Steps to Live a Happier and Healthier Life, a Life Worth Living, is all about the good enough self. And the good enough parent is kind of right in line with that. So if you like this, go buy that book and you'll work all your stuff out. The good enough parent is understanding that perfectionism is not real. It's anxious thought processes. It's fear of success. It's fear of failure. It's really fear of failure. And so when we can grieve and let that go, then we can see that parents are just human beings. Like, eugenics didn't work. They said it was kind of unethical, so you don't take a test to have a baby, except for like, congratulations, there's 2 lines. But you don't take a test to be able to conceive, and you can't get lost in the spiral that people who shouldn't have kids do have kids and people who should can't. You can't get lost in that spiral. We can't control the outcomes. Everybody is just human trying to survive. And so when we can adapt that idea and that perspective, then we take away a lot of shame and guilt, and we let go of a lot of things that we hold on to. Other people's behaviors is not a reflection of our value. That is a very important concept. Other people's behaviors, not a reflection of our own personal values. And when we know that there's a lot of intergenerational traumas, remember that some of this is inherited. If there is a stress in your grandparents, your great-grandparents, your great-great-grandparents, how your genes get expressed as they get pulled from one family to the next, the way that it's called methylization, the way that they get expressed are different, and they're more likely to express stress response, so higher likelihood of fight, flight, or freeze, higher likelihood of cortisol release is happening through the generations based on stress. So where did baby boomers come from? Pop quiz. Baby boomers came from because people came back from the war. The World War. It's kind of a big deal, right? Like, this wasn't just a little tiny tryst. It was a world war. And people came back, and as the, people were coming back home, they were saying, hey babe, what's up? And they were having children. That's where the baby boom came from in the 1950s and early 60s. The boom came from the fact that all these people just came back from a highly traumatic experience. And if you know anything about history, and on the home front here in the US, there was a lot of scarcity happening. Scarcity mindset is one of the 4 barriers. Isn't it amazing how it all connects? And so that intergenerational trauma pattern is coming up without you even realizing it's there. It's in the DNA. So no shame in the game. It's in the DNA. Understanding that there's limitations in caregiving, that nobody that I know of, and I've worked with, children's and families and child protective services, never have I, and I am pulling a loose statement here, but most people do not intend on doing harm. They do the best that they can. And some people don't have the modeled behavior. They don't have the skill set to do better than what they have to offer. And again, if you go back to attachment and stress, when you are stressed, you're pulling from very little secure attachment and a lot from fear of abandonment and fear of obligation. And obligation is built into parenting. And again, there's no test to say, like, you can have a parent. I mean, there are things that you can do, and I'm not going to get into that whole spiel. But sometimes there's no choice. Like, you have a child, you do the best you can, you choose to have a child, you don't choose to have a child, whatever happens, life is chaotic, and having children is chaos, and amongst that chaos is how you're able to respond to it. And a lot of people don't have the ability to respond to that chaos. So what does it look like to have a good enough parent? Sometimes if we can accept that we have a good enough parent, we relieve some of that pressure of perfectionism, that perceived expectation. Go back to the attachment video. I talked about the whole spectrum of the bad brain and really getting down to the nuts and bolts of it. But a good enough parent is somebody who attempts to understand and meet basic emotional needs. Just basic emotional needs. It's someone who shows remorse and attempts to repair after mistakes. It's maintaining a consistent present despite imperfection. It's demonstrating a capacity for personal growth and providing basic safety and security. Some of the common familial wounds that we find is a lot of anxiety and trauma. It's our ability to react to stress, and we see that it impacts our adult life through our relationship patterns, our self-worth issues, our trust and intimacy challenges, our emotional regulation difficulties, and our sense of need for perfection and control issues. So when we are in a place where we are discordant in our familial wounds, we will see those common aspects. Relationship problems, a lot of relationship problems, a lot of this trust feedback loop is there. The doubt is there for ourselves and the doubt is there for others. And what we're inheriting through emotion is our unmet childhood needs, our coping mechanisms. We learn. I mean, there's nature versus nurture, and we're learning. We are inheriting it through the DNA and how it gets expressed, but we're also learning it. We're seeing it, and that was inherited, and it just keeps running through the families. Communication is a big thing that we learn through our families. When we don't have a lot of communication and emotions aren't really communicated, it's seen as a bad thing. It's seen as that's how you get in trouble. You have a sibling and somebody cries, whoever is not crying is in trouble. It's just how it is. So what do we say? Crying is a bad thing. You get in trouble when people cry. And it's not meant, like, that's not what parents meant to do. It's just how it happens. It's like, oh, what happened? They are not in a secure state. They are panicking. They're trying to figure out what's going on. But because of our brains at that age, we create implicit memories based on our developmental level. We are in a concrete state. It's good or bad. You are the good little person or a bad little person. There's nothing in between. There's no shame in this game. I promise you. It's just how the brain works. So how do we heal from all this? How do we get on a journey of healing? Awareness, acceptance, action. It is the 3 A's of success. Awareness, acceptance, action. Going to a therapist or a coach. You can go into the video description and get a free wellness 15-minute wellness consult. I'd love to tell you and give you some insight. Acknowledging and awareness is the first key. Recognizing without minimizing, recognizing without judgment, our justification, understanding the impact and how it is in the here and now, identifying what the inherited patterns are so that you find agency in what you want to do with it. Don't complete a cycle if you don't want to complete that cycle. You have agency to complete that cycle. And then accepting the complexity of it, that there's no shame in the game. So people are just human, and let it go. Close that door and keep living in the here and now. And then you grieve, you mourn the capacity that people have in your life, that they're not going to be everything that you need them to be. Those perceived expectations will keep you from happiness. Grieve it, just let it go. Send it off. It does not serve you. I promise you, it does not serve you. And again, like, understanding that a lot of this is inherited shame and guilt and shame will hold you into your grief and hold you into your trauma. So just the more that you can let it go and find your space and not have the space of others holding you back is going to be a liberating thing. Talk about freedom. Acknowledge the things that were lost and work through the anger and sadness. Just hold a space for that space. Like, just hold it. Hold a space for yourself. And at the end of the week, we're going to talk about incremental grief and how we're going to hold that space. So just hit subscribe and check it out in a couple days. And then we're going to grieve it. We're going to mourn the ideal parent fantasy. We're going to process childhood disappointments and just send it down the river and know that it doesn't serve us. You know, you can visually just kind of grab all of your memories and say, like, donate toss. You know, we don't keep a lot from our childhood. If we do, let's talk about hoarding. Naturally, as we grow, as we move, as we have changes, we let go of things. And as we let go of things, some of these toxic memories that don't serve us in the here and now can be let go as well. They don't serve us. Our amygdala wants to say it's important. It's not, I promise. It's not going to help you. And so when we can do all of this, then we can find integration. So we can kind of build who we want to be. We can live in the here and now on that integrated self. And that's finding meaning in our experiences on the bank of value, strength building, and growth, gratitude, versus the bank of suffering and despair. We can have self-parenting skills, so we can reparent ourselves. We can find how we want to re-love ourselves and rebirth ourselves. We can build emotional resiliency. We can create new family narratives, and we can establish healthy boundaries. What serves us goes inside the circle. We have a boundary setting video, so go and check it out. And then we have reconstruction. So as we are integrating, we are reconstructing our mind. We're rebuilding neuroplasticity of healing and growth, happier and healthier life. We're redefining what our family relationships are, what serves us, what doesn't serve us. We're building new support systems. We can choose our family. We can't as a child. We have very little agency as a child. We accept that. We learn the capacity that we have and the decisions that happen upon us. We have no agency over, very little agency up until the age of 18. And then all of a sudden you have all this agency. Talk about, and you're still in adolescence until 24. Talk about a tornado of emotion and feeling. It is chaos. It's absolute chaos. Accept it. That is what it is. That's what we all go through. And we're going to make really cool decisions. We're going to make really bad decisions. It's all okay because it was learning. And we learn and we grow. Or we stay and we suffer. We find our personal values, we find our coping skills, we find how we stay in the present, and we live for our internal values and our beliefs. It's all in my book, Key Steps to Happier, Healthier Living. It's a lot is building the success and the coping skills in part 1. In part 2, we learn how to regulate our emotions. That's why I have built these programs, is so that you can go through all the key factors of success. Following and finding and building purpose, regulating our emotions, which is a lot of our past, and getting all that past into finding value for what serves us and letting go of what doesn't serve us. And then we get into interpersonal skills and how we relate to others and allow ourselves to open up to others. If you click in the video description, you're going to see a link to my blog where we're going to do a self-assessment to see what where our healing progress is, where our growth indicators are, what our action steps are, depending on where our archetype of healing is. I am Jennifer Evans with Empowering Wellness Counseling Solutions. Hit that like and subscribe button. I would look forward to working with you. I am an individual therapist licensed in Virginia and Florida, and I do a lot of professional coaching, helping people understand and build personal and professional success. Thank you so much.